really encouraging in the investment community to divest from oil and gas, they're starting to reverse course as well because they see the writing on the wall. They see the future, and the future is dark, literally, with rolling blackouts if we continue down this road.
My name is Mike Mauceli, and this is the Energy Show with REI Energy, where we're energizing your investments and maximizing your tax deductions. Today, we're going to be talking about Kamala's energy flip-flop, and you're going to discover how Kamala Harris keeps changing her position on energy and what's at stake in this year's election. My guest today is Tom Pyle. Tom is the president of the American Energy Alliance, the Institute for Energy Research. Well, Tom, it's great to have you on the show again.
So glad to be here. Good to see you again.
So anyway, I was kind of watching on and off the Democratic convention the other night, and man, there was a lot of people spinning yarn, especially about oil and gas, right?
Yeah, it's as if they want us to wipe away her entire career plus her previous campaign, which flamed out in like, I think she was the first to drop out, if I recall. So.
Yeah. So what did we learn anyway during the convention about Kamala's new energy policies now?
What we learned is she barely mentioned the words climate change. What we learned is that her handlers have said occasionally to the press that she's walked back several of the things that she has been very vocally in support of. And they literally tried to just eviscerate her entire record in the span of, the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's breathtaking to me how swiftly the media has just sort of fallen in line. It's really wild.
Yeah, it really is. And, I remember, I guess, back when she was running for president, where I think someone was interviewing her and she said the first thing she was going to do was do away with hydraulic fracturing. And now she's kind of changed her tone on that.
Well, yeah, she said, quote, "There's no question I want to ban fracking." But, she has to win Pennsylvania in order to win the election. And so, again, she never said it. One of her aides whispered it to the media. But the fact of the matter is that she was also one of the lead Senate sponsors of the Green New Deal. Remember AOC? And that whole thing. She also, even as Attorney General in California, Kamala Harris sued the Biden administration because they weren't going far enough on banning offshore oil and gas. That's literally what she did. So, we have to judge, she's got a lot of words. She said a lot of things. They're all on record, but we also need to judge her by her deeds. And she has shown both in the Attorney General's office in California and as a senator, and the doozy, of course, that the media also wants us to forget is she's been in office for the last 3 years and almost 4 years. And we at the American Energy Alliance have documented 250 specific actions that this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, and their buddies in Capitol Hill have taken to make it harder to produce oil and gas in this country. 250 specific actions.
Wow.
And so those are what she should be judged on, not what she thinks she wants to do on day one of a Harris presidency, when she's had more than 1,300 days now running the country with President Biden.
Well, does she not know that, and I'm sure most politicians do. I mean, it just depends on their agenda and trying to get votes. But, there's about 6,000 products that are made from fossil fuels, right?
Yeah, the social media accounts from all of the TikTok influencers that they're buying off all use phones, which has a whole bunch of stuff that you get from oil and gas, right?
Yeah.
All of the pharmaceuticals, all the cosmetics, toothpaste, bubble gum. If you started taking away everything in your home office or your living room that was derived from oil and gas, you'd be wearing some hemp clothes And sitting on straw and some cotton and maybe a few wheat, wool blankets and whatnot, because almost everything that we have come to enjoy, the creature comforts of life, are derived from oil and gas, particularly natural gas.
Yeah, I like to watch this show called Alone, and where they take a group of people and they put them up in Canada, and they give them very little to live off of. They've got to go out and and find their own food, build their own shelters, and almost every one of them almost starve to death because they just can't find enough food or energy, to keep themselves warm when the winter comes, and so I just think about that when these people come out with these ludicrous statements that, we want to do away with fossil fuels and go back to burning wood and go back to, scurrying for food, which I think back in the dark ages, people almost starved to death back then, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And speaking of cold, the nominee for Vice President Governor Walz of Minnesota, he's as bad or worse.
Yeah.
When he was in Congress, he supported carbon taxes. He supported cap and trade, which thankfully was defeated. He's voted against efforts to improve the permitting process for natural gas pipelines and other things. And then when he became governor, his basic, I think his governing principle is, how can I be crazier than California? On these energy issues. He originally ran as saying, "Oh, I would like to have Minnesota be 50% net zero," they call it, which is just fantasy, by 2030. Then when he got elected, he said, "I changed my mind. I want 100% by 2050. I want 100% by 2050." Then he said, "I really love what California is doing, trying to ban gas-powered vehicles. I'm going to sign up for that too. Why not?" Right? And Mr. Everyday sort of Midwestern aw shucks guy, his policies have actually killed union jobs in Minnesota, right? He has led to his policies have resulted in the closing of several facilities that are used in manufacturing and also in the mining and minerals of components that they support, like EVs and batteries. So she's bad, he's badder. And it's a scary combination,
Yeah,
quite frankly.
it's not really a laughing matter because if these people like this actually get put into office, we've seen a taste of it with Joe Biden, but I think it's going to go further with Kamala and Tim Walz.
Yeah, it has. And the other thing too that people don't think about, but if you look at this whole notion that the Biden presidency has been historic with respect to climate change. Well, they passed legislation called the Inflation Reduction Act. They've completely ignored the fact that it increased inflation. But on top of that, really all it comes down to is a program that provides billions of dollars of taxpayer money. The stuff we send to Washington gets washed back to renewable energy companies, battery companies, auto manufacturers. Some of the biggest beneficiaries of these subsidies, taxpayer subsidies, are the auto industry, General Motors, Ford, and others, at foreign-owned wind companies, for example. So their big signature climate bill is nothing but a big fat wealth transfer from us to their rich corporate buddies. I thought the Democrats were against corporate welfare. They've become sort of the biggest boosters of corporate welfare over the last, say, 5 or 6 years. And this stuff is just obscene, the amount of money that they're handing to these corporations.
Yeah, and I think I read an article yesterday where I think it was Shell that is saying they're going back to producing natural gas and petrol liquids because obviously they can't make any money in this green agenda and they've got to create value for their shareholders. So I think some companies out there are actually starting to wise up and try to get away from all of this.
I think they're coming to the realistic expectations that you can't move away from hydrocarbons, and nor should you really. There's nothing wrong with if you think that we have to reduce emissions. There's nothing wrong with empowering these companies to do that because They're the ones who have the best technology. They're the ones who are doing incredible work in the tech space, computing, AI, and all this other stuff to be more efficient in their production of oil and gas, and at the same time reduce their environmental footprint. And by the way, we are not only the richest energy country in the world, meaning we have more oil and gas and coal under our shores and lands than anywhere else in the world. We also do it better and cleaner than
Yeah.
anyone else in the world. And so if you really do want to clean up, so to speak, the industry, encourage more production here, because the alternative is Venezuela. The alternative is Iraq. The alternative is countries, petrostates, if you will, who don't give a hoot about those environmental considerations, especially when it comes down to funding their socialist programs or their wars, quite frankly, in the case of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, and when you look at these foreign countries, such like Venezuela, I mean, their oil is a lot dirtier than our oil is. I mean, a lot of people don't really understand, when you talk about sweet Texas crude or 42 gravity crude, really is a crude that's very conducive to refining. But when you go to these places like Venezuela, they've got a real heavy crude. It has a lot of sulfur in it. And so that's even worse for the environment, but yet we want to ship that across the ocean and take oil from these countries in order to say that we're going green here in the United States. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, all they want to do, really, if you think about it, if it comes down to this, not in my backyard, right?
Yeah.
They want to wash their hands of all the stuff. When you have batteries and you want to electrify the entire automobile fleet, which is a physical impossibility, you cannot replace every gas-powered car with an EV. Never going to happen. But if you wanted to, you're talking tons and tons and gigatons of materials that you have to mine.
Yeah.
Okay. Last I checked, mining wasn't like benign in terms of, now I'm not saying that I'm not against mining. What I'm saying is that they just want to like have all of these sort of, the dirty parts, if you will, have someone else somewhere do that and not pay attention to it. But when you're talking about emissions, they're not limited to a geographical area, right? Those
Right.
emissions from China blow across to the United States. The plastic, the pollution in the ocean blows across the Pacific to the United States. So it's absurd to me at its face to think that these policies are about reducing emissions if they're not serious about onshoring those types of activities here, where we do it cleaner and safer, and especially when we protect our workers more. Oh, and by the way, in the case of China, we don't use slaves
Yeah.
to do a lot of that work. This is a horrible, it's not even just about the environment and being completely opposed to oil and gas production. It's a national security threat as well.
No, it is really.
When you want to move our economy, our energy system to a minerals-based system, you're saying that we are the number one producer of hydrocarbons. We want to stop being dependent on those and be dependent on minerals, which are controlled and operated to the tune of 80% by China. So it's not only a dumb, ignorant energy policy, it's also compromising our national security to boot. This is not a dream team. This is not joy, right? This is the opposite of both of those things. This is a really bad, this is a really bad ticket with respect to these issues.
Well, Kamala and Tim Walz, I mean, they seem to try to come up with new words, right? New catchphrases. And I think they wanted to come up with freedom, that green energy is a form of freedom. Is it actually or not?
100% not. The Biden administration is making it easier to import solar panels from China because they can't produce them here. So there's nothing free or clean or cheap or safe about, again, turning our energy security over to a communist country that is
Yeah,
out to
because
get us.
China and I think Russia's already given the Paris Accord. They've already given them their answer, right? We're out. We're happy to sell all you crazy Americans all the stuff that you want, as far as the rare earth minerals and to build all these solar panels. And here in Texas, we probably have more wind energy than any other state in the country. We also have more solar panels than any other state in the country. And I don't know if you've ever stood on under one of those windmills or been near one of those wind farms, and they are loud. And then not to mention all of the raptors and birds that have been killed just simply trying to, fly through the windmills. And, it's just and then they complain about oil and gas, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah, and you saw off the coast of Nantucket some of those big blades cracked, and all that stuff was washing ashore. They had to close, boohoo, they had to close the beach of Nantucket in the summertime. And so, yeah, none of this stuff is free. It's not about freedom. It's about rewarding your political allies and corporate supporters in a lot of ways. That's what a lot of that money from the IRA is from. EPA Administrator Michael Regan under Biden and Harris said, "Oh, this is great. For the first time in EPA's history, we have walking around money." Which, is a phrase that, basically it's you just got a big wad of cash that you can hand out to your constituents so that they can help you get elected in November, right? So yeah, it's not good at all. It's not good at all.
No, it really isn't. And, they can come out with all the catchphrases. I guess, Kamala, she introduced her idea during her acceptance speech as, we've got an opportunity economy here. I mean, I don't see how there can be an opportunity economy without fossil fuels.
There isn't and won't be. And if you look, just look at what these policies have done in places like California. The electricity prices highest in the country, gas prices highest in the country. New York is close second, and they're a deep blue state. Governor Walz is certainly working real hard to make Minnesota, poor again. And so, yeah, these policies translate directly to more money out of our pockets, which means we have less money that we can spend on other things that we value and priorities that we hold dear. And even in some cases, so oppressive that people have to choose between prescriptions and electricity in some cases, right? And so, yeah, these ideas, fortunately, like you said, a lot of the industry, a lot of the business community is starting to push back. You're seeing, like you said, a return to that which these companies were born and do well to get back to their core of producing hydrocarbons. And then also you're seeing some of this pushback in the investment space, ESG, that famous three-letter word that these investors like Larry Fink at BlackRock have been promoting and actively encouraging in the investment community to divest from oil and gas. They're starting to reverse course as well because they see the writing on the wall. They see the future, and the future is dark, literally, with rolling blackouts if we continue down this road.
Yeah. So what is it at stake, for oil and gas producers if Kamala wins?
So fortunately, the industry is very resilient. As you can see, we're still producing a lot of oil and gas in this country. But what the cumulative impact of these Biden-Harris policies, these specific actions have done is threatened future production, right? Two things. One, we could be producing even more than we are. And two, it takes a while. There's a sort of a long horizon, investment horizon. It takes a while to go from lease to well, right? And then from well to delivering that resource to a refinery and whatnot. If they're seeing this clamp down of the federal lands and the leasing opportunities on federal lands, if you're seeing these barriers to entry, you're seeing these lots of these actions increasing the cost of doing business here in this country, you lose your incentive to do that very thing, which means you either exit the business, you merge, or in some cases you forego economic opportunity and wait for a better climate. So if we have 4 more years of Biden, Harris, I'm afraid that we get to a point where it becomes not worth considering investing in this country, and we don't want to get there. We certainly don't want to get there.
No, I agree with you 100%. But there certainly don't need 4 more years of it. And well, it was great having you on today, Tom. Can you tell our listeners how to follow you?
Yeah, go to the AmericanEnergyAlliance.org, and you sign up for our stuff, and you get actual voting profiles, like what these folks did or what they propose, as opposed to what the media and the fantasy world at the DNC is coming out with.
I agree with you.
Just be an informed voter and think about what the impacts of these policies are going to have in your life. And I think I know what direction you'll go. I'm not saying the other guy's perfect, but he has a very different vision for American energy.
Well, if we want to turn this country around, I think we all are going to have to, get out and vote for the right group. And in my opinion, that's Trump.
Yep. I think you're right about that.
All right. Well, have a great day, and I'd love to have you back in the future.
Anytime. Glad to talk to you.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.